The first night, I was left completely alone in our house in the suburbs of Pittsburgh. My parents had barely pulled out of the driveway before the excitement I had been feeling all week turned into a quiet dread I couldn't explain, like the house itself had been waiting for this exact moment to finally relax now that there was only one person inside. And I kept telling myself I was imagining things as I checked every lock twice, turned on extra lights, and settled into the living room with the TV on just to keep the silence away. But sometime after midnight, the air in the house grew noticeably colder, even though the heater was running, and I started hearing faint sound from upstairs. Not footsteps exactly, but slow movements like fabric brushing against walls or something being dragged gently across the floor. And I assumed it was just the old wood expanding from the temperature change until my phone buzzed with a notification from the home security app showing that the hallway motion sensor had been triggered even though I hadn't moved from the couch in over an hour. And when I checked the camera feed, my stomach dropped because the hallway light was on and my parents' bedroom door at the far end was standing wide open even though I distinctly remembered closing it earlier. And while I stared at the screen, trying to process what I was seeing, the door slowly moved inward as if someone inside the room had just stepped back into the darkness. And I felt this overwhelming certainty that if I went upstairs, I would see something I wouldn't survive seeing. So I stayed frozen on the couch until the clock on the cable box changed to 3:03 a.m. at the exact moment the TV turned off by itself, plunging the room into silence. So complete it felt like all sound had been sucked out of the air, and then I heard it clearly from the top of the stairs. 3 slow knocks on what followed by the unmistakable creak of my parents' bedroom door opening fully. And before I could even think about what to do, a voice called my name from upstairs in the exact tone my mother used when she wanted me to come help her with something, except she was supposed to be 3 states away, and the voice sounded slightly delayed like a recording played through a damaged speaker. I shouted back without meaning to, asking who was there, and the voice immediately responded from a different part of the upstairs hallway this time, closer to the stairs, saying, "Come up," here, in a tone that was no longer pretending to be my mother, but something flatter, deeper, like multiple voices speaking at once. And I grabbed my phone to call my parents, but the screen was black and unresponsive, even though it had been fully charged minutes earlier. And as I stood there shaking, I heard slow footsteps begin descending the staircase, each step accompanied by a soft scraping sound, as if whatever was coming down wasn't used to walking upright. And when the motion light at the bottom flicked on it, revealed nothing at first except empty stairs. But then the wood creaked under an invisible weight 2 steps from the bottom, and I realized something was standing there just outside my ability to see it, something tall enough that I could feel its presence before I could see it, and the air grew so cold my breath started fogging in front of me as a smell like damp soil and mold filled the room, followed by a whisper directly beside my ear saying my name again, even though I hadn't seen anything move. And I ran for the front door only to find it already unlocked and slightly open despite knowing I had secured earlier. And when I pulled it wider, a blast of freezing air rushed in, carrying the sound of footsteps running behind me across the living room floor, even though I knew I was the only visible person there. And I sprinted outside barefoot into the dark street, not stopping until I reached my neighbor's house and started pounding on their door. But when we returned minutes later with a flashlight, the house looked completely normal. Lights on, TV running, no sign of forced entry, except for one detail that made my blood run cold. Every single door inside the house, including closets, cabinets, and even the refrigerator, was standing wide open as if someone had walked through, methodically opening each one while searching for something. And the upstairs hallway motion sensor light was still on even though no one was there anymore, illuminating my parents' bedroom, where the closet door now hung off its track like it had been yanked open with impossible force. And inside the closet, the back wall, which had always been solid, now showed a narrow, dark gap, just large enough for a person to squeeze through, leading into a space that shouldn't have existed between our house and the neighbors. A space filled with cold air that smelled like earth and decay. And when the police later examined it, they claimed it was just an old construction gap and that no one could have fit inside. But they couldn't explain the long, deep scratches carved into the wood from the inside, as if something had been trying desperately to claw its way out for years, or why the security system log showed that at exactly 3:03 a.m. every door sensor in the house had registered as open at the same time, even though none of the alarms sounded. And we moved out 2 months later after I refused to spend another night there, but sometimes I still wake up at exactly 3:03 a.m. with the overwhelming feeling that a door somewhere nearby has just opened, and that if I listen carefully I'll hear those slow scraping footsteps coming toward me again, picking up exactly where they left off. When my parents left for a weekend trip to visit my aunt in Seattle, they warned me several times not to go near the basement because it had always given them a strange feeling and the wiring was old, but I was 16 and curious. And the first night alone felt like a dream of freedom until around midnight when the house settled into an almost unnatural silence that made every creak of the old wooden floors feel like someone was walking behind me. And I tried to ignore it, watching TV and keeping lights on, until I heard it, a faint whispering from the basement, low at first, indistinct, almost like the sound of air rushing through an old vent, but gradually forming words that called my name. Kevin, Kevin, come down. And at first I froze, telling myself it was just the wind, just the pipes, but then the whispers grew clearer, more insistent, echoing through the stairwell, repeating my name over and over in a tone that was mine, but not mine. Familiar yet wrong, almost distorted, like someone had been listening to me all day and mimicking my voice, and my dog Max started growling, hair raised along his spine, staring toward the basement door that I had left closed, and a chill ran down my spine that wasn't just the winter air seeping through the walls. It was heavier, deeper, like the house itself was exhaling a warning I couldn't ignore, and curiosity mixed with fear, so I grabbed a flashlight and cautiously stepped toward the basement, my phone barely holding a charge, and when I slowly turned the doorknob, it was warm, like someone had touched it recently, and the door creaked open on its own as if inviting me inside, revealing nothing but darkness and the faint smell of damp earth, old wood, and something sour I couldn't place. And as I shone the flashlight down the stairs, I thought I saw a figure standing just at the bottom, tall and pale, shrouded in shadows, motionless. And the second I blinked, it was gone, but the whispers continued, now coming from all directions, circling me, saying, Kevin, come closer, and I realized I couldn't hear them through my ears alone. They were in my head, in my chest, vibrating in my bones, compelling me to move forward, and my hand shook as I stepped down the stairs slowly, each creak echoing in the emptiness like a drumbeat of terror. And halfway down, I noticed the walls were no longer normal concrete or drywall. They were lined with scratches, deep gouges and patterns I didn't recognize, symbols that seemed to crawl and shift whenever I looked directly at them like they were alive, and the air grew colder, fog forming in my breath despite the heater being on upstairs. And I heard something move behind me, a soft shuffling, dragging like someone with long limbs sliding against the wall. And when I spun around, nothing was there, only the dark, only the whispering, and then I heard again my own voice, but warped, repeating the exact thoughts I had been thinking about going back upstairs, mocking my fear, and I ran halfway up the stairs to escape, but the bottom seemed to stretch further than possible, staircase warped, and the whispers became louder, faster, chanting, echoing through the beams of the house, and I reached the bottom finally and froze as I saw it. A figure taller than any human, skin like wax, eyes black and hollow, mouth moving but no sound coming out, standing in front of it. Old wooden door that I had never noticed before, a door that wasn't on any blueprint, a door that seemed to pulse slightly like it was breathing, and the whispers converged there louder than before, saying, "Open it, Kevin, open it." And I couldn't move my feet, couldn't breathe, couldn't even scream, as the door slowly creaked open by itself, revealing a lightless void beyond. And from that void came a coldness, so deep it made my teeth ache, followed by the whisper of hundreds of voices at once, overlapping, chanting my name, promising secrets, promising power, promising the return of things I'd never seen before, and I felt myself being pulled toward the darkness, a force stronger than gravity, and my flashlight fell from my hands, illuminating the doorway for just a second before going out, and in that instant I swear I saw faces pressed against the edges of the void, pale, twisted, grinning, staring directly at me. And I stumbled backward and ran up the stairs, nearly tripping, slamming the basement door behind me. But the whispers didn't stop. They leaked through the cracks, through the walls, into my ears, and even under the door. And I called 911 shaking, tried to explain that there was something in the basement, something alive, something that knew my name and wanted me to open the door. And the dispatcher tried to call me while police arrived, but when they checked the basement, they found nothing. No figure, no scratches, no strange door, no signs anyone had been there, just dust, spider webs, and the faint smell of damp earth that they attributed to the old basement. Yet my parents' old contractor confirmed that the basement had never had a door there, nor had any wiring or structural space ever existed behind that wall. And the scariest part is that night, I had recorded the house on my phone, hoping to capture something, and when I replayed the footage I could hear my own voice, whispering from the basement, even when I wasn't there, saying my name, in the same distorted tone. And since that night, I have never gone near the basement again. I never plan to, and I refuse to be alone in that house at night. Because sometimes late, when the wind howls just right and the old house creaks, I swear I can still hear my name being called, slow and deliberate, from somewhere far below, from that door that shouldn't exist, waiting for me to come back.